Hi, it's Ivaldi Sako. Welcome to the show. Today we'll talk about whatever you saw in the title of this podcast, of course, as usual, but also how to get into flow with the 6 internal triggers, the daily to-do list to achieve anything and become a high performer, the 6 most important weekly habits to succeed beyond your wildest dreams and do the seemingly impossible, because I got this book here and everything is going to be taken away from this, the art of impossible. And in a very short amount of time, you're going to be able to achieve great things in a very short amount of time and not stay stuck on the way towards your goals. Also, you'll be able to achieve pretty much anything effortlessly because you're going to get into the state of flow. And the state of flow is the state where everything is effortless. Everything flows naturally to you. Time passes by like very quickly or very slowly, depending on the moment. And you are able to have such high performances that you can achieve anything. Like literally, the art of impossible. This is from Steven Kotler. And I'm going to be reading parts of this book that I found very useful. And I hope that if any of that interests you, you stay here with us, listen to this podcast in its entirety because it will serve you a lot. I'm just here to serve you. I'm here to, if you don't know me, my name is Ivaldi Sako. I'm an entrepreneur and I'm on a mission to inspire, motivate, and educate the world. Hopefully, one day. And here, I document my journey, I document what I learned to help you become truly free and successful because I believe it's your right to be really free, totally free, and it's our duty to be successful, to succeed. So, if any of that interests you, I suggest you really don't waste a split second and just click subscribe right now on this podcast to not forget and miss the next episodes because the next episode will be very useful. I think I'm going to be reading Never Finished from David Goggins. It's going to be very useful as well. I just read a bit of it and it's already like, okay, cool. That's very good. Anyway, so yeah, let's start, shall we? By the way, English is not my native language, so if I just stumble here and there, just a warning, right? Don't pay attention to this. I believe that you can understand me, right? So, yeah, let's get into it. By the way, we have a fee on this show, and if you get some value out of this show, you share it with someone else that you think might help them as well. And if you don't find it valuable, don't share it. But if you do, this is our agreement here between us, right? And if you go forward, you agree to share the show. Just one person at least. And if you want to 2, 3 more, whatever, right? Cool, let's go. Let's get into it. So in this book, The Art of Impossible, Steven Kotler tells you that you have it in your biology. If you know the cover, it's I'm not gonna repeat everything, right? Because this is the 4th part. You can listen to this on its own, but it's the 4th part that I made, the 4th podcast episode of this podcast that I made on The Art of Impossible, because this is a book that is very like condensed in information, very useful information. And so I did 3, I believe, other episodes, one on motivation, one on learning, and one on creativity. And this one is on flow and the practical side of flow specifically, because I'm going to give you a to-do list that is going to be helping you tremendously. Obviously, I'm not exaggerating all of this, and I believe that he's not either, right? Steven Kotler. So yeah, let's start. Flow triggers. So there are triggers. 3 different types of triggers that you can have. By the way, I'm thirsty because it's very hot. I will be drinking a bit of water here and there, so I apologize in advance. So there are internal triggers, so things that happen inside of you, right? And there are external triggers, things that happen in our environment. And there are social triggers that happen when you're around people. And so I'm going to give you the internal triggers that he gives you, and I'm going to read you a passage from the first trigger that he talks about, because it was very useful. I believe it will serve a lot of people. So in internal triggers, there are multiple ones. I think this is like the most important ones. External triggers, sometimes it's more difficult to control, and social triggers, well, I just haven't really practiced it, so it's very hard for me to say, but I'll tell you about all of them, so you can use them as you will. Internal triggers. First one is autonomy. So if you have listened to the previous podcast, you know that there are sorry guys, I was distracted because a woman just is parking behind me, because I'm filming this in the car, and she shouldn't be parking behind me, I think. I don't know. Anyway, so autonomy, it's all about freedom of choice and freedom of thought. So in freedom of choice, it's just like you are able to choose whatever you do with your time. And we talked about this in the podcast on motivation, I believe, because this is an internal trigger, an internal motivator as well. Autonomy, and then there's also mastery, but this is about autonomy. And he takes a quote, I believe, from Csikszentmihalyi. I hope I'm pronouncing this well. I've trained myself to actually pronounce this name. I don't know if you can see, but it's very hard for me as a non-English native speaker. Anyway, he says, pay attention. If attention is the means by which a person exchanges information with the environment, then voluntary focusing of attention is a state of optimal interaction. In such a state, a person feels fully alive and in control, because he or she can direct the flow of reciprocal information that unites person and environment in an interactive system. I know that I am alive, that I am somebody, that I matter. The ability to focus attention is the most basic way of reducing ontological anxiety, the fear of impotence, and of non-existence. This might be the main reason why the exercise of concentration, when it is subjectively interpreted to be free, is such an enjoyable experience. So that means that when you're free to do something, you have the feeling of freedom, right? And it also, the part of anxiety, I had that, I believe, to a certain degree, and it's very useful to become aware of this. So please, if you know someone that struggles with anxiety when they're outside, even socially, I think this is useful to dig deeper into that. And so the author here says that he describes, he says this: when we focus attention in the present, we are taking attention off these forms of anxiety, right? So you can't be anxious, and this is very important to be in flow. You can't be anxious and in flow, because if you're anxious, that means that you're not totally focused. And we'll see that complete concentration is one of the triggers that triggers flow, right? But before this trigger, one that is even more important than this is the intrinsic motivators that are curiosity, passion, and purpose. You want to be curious about something. It's the triad of motivators. And more critically, passion, this is what the author says. Passion is a fairly selfish experience. Purpose fixes this problem, because purpose, then you're transforming your passion into something that helps everyone, right? That helps My mission is to inspire, motivate, and educate the world. This helps the world, it makes it better, right? So it's something that helps everyone, so it's not selfish anymore, right? It's not just because I like doing it, right? It's just because I find it honorable and useful in the world. Then there's complete concentration. That's the third trigger. And so this third trigger is just basically saying like flow follows focus. If you want to be in flow, you need to be focused and completely focused with no distractions. And this is why it's crucial that you don't allow yourself to be distracted with any notifications, your phone, an alarm, people, anyone. Like it can't happen. You can't get into flow because even if you happen to by chance get into flow, you won't stay for long because you'll be distracted and it will smack out of you. It will smack flow out of yourself, right? You won't be into flow. The fourth one is clear goals. So clear goals, the author in this book, he talks to you about, I think 3 or 4 different types of goals. So there's a massively transformative purpose. This is a purpose spot, right? The mission, the big grandiose goal that is almost not very achievable, right? It's always like constant, right? Inspire, motivate, and educate the world. I'm not going to know that like I've done this or not. This is a constant thing that I'm going to progress toward, right? Then there's hard goals. This is big pillars. So for example, I'd love to build a great school, right? That would be like so cool to me, right? And this is a big, hard, big goal, right? Now, the third one, the third step is, it's a smaller goal than that, is clear goals. And clear goals, he tells you this. Clear goals tell us where and when to put our attention. If our goals are clear, the brain doesn't have to worry about what to do or what to do next. It already knows. Thus, focus tightens, motivation heightens, and extraneous information gets filtered out. This lowers cognitive load and frees up the extra energy, which can then be repurposed for attention. And attention is crucial. It's a very important energy that you need to, your brain needs to save up to be able to then get into flow. Action and awareness can start to merge, and we're pulled even deeper into the now. And in the now, there's no past or future, and a lot less room for self, which are the pesky intruders most likely to yank us to the then, right? So, this voice tells you, you're not good enough. You shouldn't be doing this. Oh, look at these people. They're going to be, what are all these people going to say, right? This voice is gone. And so because it's gone, you're fully in the now. Clear goals help you get fully into the now. And clear goals gives us certainty. So you know exactly what you achieve, what you need to do, and when it's a success or not. It's a very clear thing. So it's like tomorrow, tomorrow I'm going to become a great bodybuilder. This is not a clear goal. Tomorrow I'm going to lose 10 pounds. Well, actually, this is a clearer goal, but it's not a clear goal. A clear goal is actionable. You need to have the ability it's what you're going to do, basically. Tomorrow I'm going to run for 30 minutes at this place. That's a clear goal. I'm going to do this for this period of time. That's a clear goal. So yeah, this is very important. Have a clear goal. So you know exactly what to do and when to do it. And because basically to get into flow, you need to be functioning on autopilot. You don't want to be thinking because your prefrontal cortex needs to be deactivated. If it is active, you're not going to be able to get into flow. So the goal is to deactivate it. And so to be able to deactivate it, you need to not be thinking. And those triggers help you not be thinking, help you not need to be thinking and still perform. Then the other trigger is immediate feedback. Feedback is the result of an action that you take. And when you take an action, you get a certain feedback. What you want is the time between the action that you take and the feedback that you get, that it be the shortest amount possible. Now, of course, you don't want to be too short. You want it to be useful, but as short as possible while still remaining very useful. So, immediate feedback, this is what the author says. Immediate feedback is another shortcut into the now. The term refers to a direct, in the moment, coupling between cause and effect. As a focusing mechanism, immediate feedback is an extension of clear goals. Clear goals tell us what we're doing. Immediate feedback tells us how to do it better. So you have direction, right? The goal is still to not have to think too much, right? You have feedback, so you know exactly where to navigate. Okay, what I just did was a little bit off. Well, I just shot a ball in basketball, right? I just passed the ball to my friend, right? It was a little too much on the left. Next time I need to, the feedback tells me, next time I will send a little on the right. That's the feedback. And you want a minimal feedback for flow. So these are the three most common. No, wait. Here's what he says. My advice: determine your minimal feedback for flow, or MFF. As a writer, he's a writer, I like to know three things about my work. Is it boring? Is it confusing? Or is it arrogant? These are the three most common errors I make, so I have this feedback. So if I have this feedback, I know how to steer. Is the minimal feedback I need for flow. You need to figure this out for yourself. And now this is like an iterative process. You're not going to find the right feedback immediately for you, right? You need to know what you need feedback on, right? And so you just practice in the beginning, and then you see, okay, I need feedback on that. Most of the time I mess up here, so I need feedback on that to know where I'm going and to know how to get better. Then there's the challenge as another trigger. The challenge skills balance. And this is basically the 4% rule. There's the concept of 1% becoming better 1% at a time, right? Well, this is like, it made me think of this because the 4% rule is the rule that says that he created, I think, Stephen Kotler created. You need to aim a goal, a clear goal. You need to aim your clear goal 4% above what you think you can do. 4% harder, right? Because at 4%, here's why 4% is tricky. If the challenge is 4% greater than your skills, that's enough to push you outside your comfort zone. This is problematic for the shy, timid, and risk-averse. 4% is on the nerve-wracking side of the equation. This is why tolerance for anxiety is a critical component of the challenge skill sweet spot. So you need to be able to tolerate failing. You need to be able to tolerate be very uncomfortable. That's the goal. But 4% is, the great limit, right? Now, there are some people that are very comfortable with risks, very comfortable being very uncomfortable, and they can go up to 20, 30%, even 40%. But by setting our sights on those tall mountains, we're depriving ourselves of the very state we need in order to climb them. And the state is the state of flow, right? You need to be like knowing you can do it, right? I know I can do this, but I'm not totally sure, right? I'm not totally sure. Like if you're totally completely certain that you've done this again and again, it's not exciting. It's not motivating, right? You're not gonna be focused. You're not gonna be present when you're doing this task. But if it's 4% above your capacities, above your skills, you are going to be focused. You're going to be excited. You're going to be curious. whether I can pull this off or not. And so this is why a little bit harder than what you can do is always the right difficulty to aim for. After that, there are external triggers. And so external triggers are things in your environment. And these are qualities in the world around us that drive us deeper into flow. So they are not really likely to get us into flow, right? Those are like things before, the internal triggers. But those things get us deeper into flow and help us stay in it longer. High consequences. So these are pretty much risks, as I understood them. This is, for example, when you're a CEO, you go in the boardroom, okay, there's high consequences. If I mess up, there's going to be high consequences. We're going to be losing a lot of money. There's stake. There's risk. For a Marine, for a guy in the army, if he goes on the enemy territory, there's high consequences. Like he could get killed. It's dangerous, right? High consequences. Or anything that is social, really, when you're talking in front of groups, public speaking, this is a social external trigger. Because this, like social risks, he tells you, social risks are a fantastic flow trigger. Your brain processes social danger with the same structures it processes physical danger, and for solid evolutionary reasons. So basically, it's like before, when you were in a group, you were safe because you could eat, right? Like when, before, back in the time. And right now, it's not necessarily the case. If you're, eliminated from the group, well, you're not going to starve. But back in the day, you would. You would not survive alone. So your brain is, wired to be stressing out, to be very scared, to be, how do you say that? To be left from the group, or to leave the group, to be forced to be fired from the group. Then there's rich environment. Rich environment. Our next flow trigger is a rich environment. This is a combination between 3 separate triggers. So those are very, very useful for me. 1, novelty. 2, unpredictability. 3, complexity. And to me, the most important one is novelty. The one that works best for me is novelty. Every time I go and do something new, I'm always into flow. Because I'm always like that curious, very, very interested. Every time I go somewhere new, this is why travel is so good. Traveling for the brain is very useful because it allows you to see new things and be alert and be focused and be present. I believe a lot of people, when they go and travel, they have a lot less anxiety because there's like novelty and they're fully into the now. And when you're fully into the now, it's very hard to be anxious. You're not anxious about, what happened before or what's going to happen next, something in the future, danger. No, you're fully in the now. And so in the now, most of the time, you don't have much problems. And so this is what it tells you on unpredictability. So novelty first could mean that there's either danger or opportunity. So this is why novelty is very useful. In the brain, it either means that there's danger or opportunity lurking in our environment. Since both are crucial for survival, the brain prioritizes the information. Unpredictability means that we don't know what happens next. Thus, we pay extra attention we pay extra attention to the next. And then, complexity shows up when we force the brain to expand its perceptual capacity. For example, when we stand on the edge of the Grand Canyon and contemplate the question of geological time, or when we gaze up at the night sky and realize that a great many of those singular points of light are actually galaxies. So it is like complexity, right? So it's something very complex, big things, right? Or when you go more precise, maybe he's talking about big things. Maybe when you go in the precision of how your phone is made, there's complexity. And so this also deepens your state of flow. Deep embodiment, the next flow trigger. Deep embodiment is basically when you're actually doing the stuff. When you're learning with just information, ingurgitating information, just like pretty much in school. This is why I want to build a great school, because to me, the way I was educated, I was basically not educated because I could not learn just having information like this. I had to do. And when you do, you learn much better and you're much more likely to get into flow because you're actually like embodying the experience. You're doing something at the same time. And this is why you get into flow the most easily when you're doing sports, when you're skiing. When I was roller skating, not that long ago, I got into flow. I was like not feeling the time passing by because I was into flow. I was like fully immersed in the activity. Plus, I was seeking new environment, so novelty. And so you see, you can combine all those things to get you into flow. And into flow, you're going to be able to achieve much better things. Then there's creativity triggers. The creativity is basically that first, we need to be constantly loading the pattern recognition system. Pattern recognition system is basically like you recognize, okay, there's similarities between those two things, and so it gets you new ideas. This is the way I understand it. And so you need to be constantly loading the pattern recognition system. With new raw materials, it needs to find connections. This is a reason to read 25 to 50 pages in the book, 25 pages a day in the book that's outside your specialty. So you can, notice some trends, right? Second, for the creativity flow, is to think differently. So try to attack a problem from different angles. Third, is to make creativity a value and a virtue. So it's something that you're almost like compensated for, right? You just, when you're proud of being creative, of finding new solutions, original solutions, right? Make this a value to you and you'll be able to seek it more and have better ideas. And when you're in creativity, you're much more likely to be into flow. Then there are social triggers. So a lot of them are similar to the internal triggers or the external triggers, but this time in group environments. Sorry for the noise. Complete concentration. So basically the same thing. You're fully focused, no distractions, but you're in a group and everybody in the group is fully focused. Shared clear goals. So basically the same thing, that clear goals, but shared, this time with everybody. Shared risk. So everybody has skin in the game. Close listening. So everybody has empathy toward each other, right? You're talking and people listen to you and you feel like you're being listened to and you listen actually to people, not just, hear them just to talk next, right? It's just like actually having empathy and curiosity and being interested in other people and the other people in your team. Good communication. So being able to, talk well and give feedback at the same time to your teammates, for example. Then there's blending egos, basically like not having your egos, and when you're coming up with ideas, you have the humility, right? You have a humility to accept people's ideas without rejecting them forefront, just trying to find the good in the ideas, not, this is what he says. When egos have been blended, no one's hugging the spotlight and everyone's thoroughly involved, right? This keeps the prefrontal cortex from coming online, allows a collective merger of action and awareness, and creates a shared sense of identity. So everyone is just like on the same mission, basically. Equal participation. Everybody plays a good part that is important for achieving this goal. Pretty easy. Familiarity. So you see this in movies a lot. Something that would be unexpected usually is expected from the members of the team. So, for example, if there's a certain circumstance and something goes wrong, well, there's, Lucas here that is going to react completely crazy, right? He's going to be screaming and, he's completely crazy about this, right? When things happen this way, he's completely crazy and he's completely unpredictable. But his teammates know about him. They're familiar with him. And so they know it's a predictable unpredictability. And so you know how the other person is going to react, so you can act accordingly. So you're not totally like distracted and thrown off, but you know. And this also helps you bond more with your team. Then there's a sense of control. A sense of control combines autonomy, so this means being free to do what you want, with competence, being good at what you do. So you know you can do it, and you have the ability to choose to do it or not, right? This is very important. A sense of control. It's basically like the autonomy part, right? And then there's the part that you need to always say yes to. Like, this is the game that actors play when they do improv. They say yes, and so there's a big elephant in this room. What is he doing here? And the other person says, no, there's no elephant. And so everything stops here. There's no more creativity. There's no more, the scenes stop, right? But if you say, oh my God, and there's also a tiger inside of him, and then there's a story that something continues, right? This is why it's always important to say yes, always. And then when, for example, you're brainstorming with your team, then you just, you list all the ideas, you say yes, 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 and, oh my God, yes, and, then you just reduce it back to the good ideas, right? To the idea that actually serves you. So this is like very useful to get momentum, basically. So yeah, this was how to trigger flow. Now flow, once you got into flow, you have cycles into flow, and those are the cycles. So the first stage of flow is struggle. So before you get into flow, you're going to be struggling, because this is the part. Excuse me, guys, I'm going to drink a little bit of water. And this is the part where you learn skills. You learn things on a new market. You get data, and it's hard, it's complex. You learn new skills, so you need to practice. And this is why, as it tells you, you need to be motivated. So this is why we start with curiosity, passion, and purpose, to be actually motivated to do this hard work, because this is hard work. This is not flowing. This is like complex, and it's hard to do it, and it's not fun to do it sometimes. It's like skill acquisition. Like you need to repeat, and this is a struggle. Flow is built around automatic processing, but automatization, requires work. You master skills slowly and consciously before the brain can execute flawlessly and unconsciously, right? This is the goal, to make the brain not work anymore and still be performing. This is why you need to struggle first. After that comes the release stage. So you've struggled. Now, time to back off. You've struggled enough, you mastered the skills, you've got the knowledge, you've digested it. Now you release. You need to do low-grade physical activity. Go for a long car drive, build model airplanes, work in the garden, play guitar. I like to draw, hike, or read. Albert Einstein famously liked to sail a boat into the middle of the Lake of Geneva. And Einstein couldn't swim and wasn't much of a sailor. As the area is prone to freak storms, he was regularly rescued from the middle of that lake. Yet, so important to his work process was the release of sailing. He chose to risk drowning rather than give it up, right? So he was still doing this just to be able to go into this stage of release. And you must not exhaust yourself in this stage. The goal here is maybe like sleep actually does the work. When you take shower, it does the work. This is why after you've taken a shower, you're into flow, because it's like something automatic, something that relaxes you. That's the goal. This is the release. And you can also use the MacGyver method. And if you want to know what the MacGyver method is, I think in the last podcast, I've told you about it. So, at the end of this one, you can go and listen back to the last episode. Then there's stage 3, the stage of flow. Flow, well, this is where you've arrived, right? You're into flow. Now the goal is to stay as long as possible into flow. And to be able to stay as long as possible into flow, you need to have prepared before. And you need to have prepared to not be distracted. You need to have prepared to not let anyone else distract you. You need to be putting all the odds in your favor so that you remain into flow. And so you stay into flow and you even deepen the state of flow. How do you do this? You take risks. You add novelty, unpredictability, complexity. You stay in the challenge skills balance sweet spot, right? 4% above your skills. So you don't know exactly if you're going to figure it out or not. You think you can, you're not sure. And this is essentially, if you're in flow, the way to turn a micro flow state into a macro flow state is via dopamine and norepinephrine. So everything that is going to increase those, as we talked in the first part, I think, of those pod series on Steven Kotler's book, motivation, how to be motivated, and how motivation is not BS. I think this was the thumbnail on YouTube. So yeah, anything that will increase dopamine, use that. And by the way, into flow, you shouldn't make decisions. Like, for example, you shouldn't go into shopping. This is what he tells you. You shouldn't go shopping when you're into flow because you're completely full of dopamine, so full of chemicals that make you feel good that you believe you can pull off any kind of clothes, right? You can wear a green flash shirt with red socks and shorts, blue shorts, and you think you look extremely well in it because you're just full of dopamine. And the next morning, you wear back those clothes and you tell yourself, oh my God, why did I chose that, right? And I think it happens to most of us, right? You were excited in the moment when you went shopping, and then, why did I buy this, right? I can't wear this. It happens to me a lot. It used to happen to me a lot. Right now, I just don't go much shopping. Anyway, the stage 4 is recovery. You can't get into flow continually because if you could, you just would stay into flow. This is the best experience. This is the best human experience you can have. It increases so much happiness. It makes you feel extremely well just by the chemicals, right? In your brain. Norepinephrine, dopamine, everything. But you need to recover to be able to get back into flow. You need to eat, you need to sleep, you need to have sunlight, you need to have all those things to be able to get back into flow. And so you need to have the grit to recover, as we talked about in one of the last episodes, because you can't do passive recovery. TV and beer won't work. Active recovery is mindfulness, saunas, stretching, Epsom salt bath, massage, ice bath, and the like. And active recovery takes work. And you need to, at the end of the day, you've been into flow, you've been struggling, and you're tired, right? You don't want to do it, but you still need to do it. This is why you need to have the grit to recover, and it's why it would be very useful for you to watch and listen to all the other podcasts on this very great book. Then, all together now, in this chapter, he gives you a list, the famous list. Hopefully you've waited a long time for this list because it's going to be very useful. You need to do things daily and weekly. These are the things that you need to do daily. The 6 things that you need to do daily. I think 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 maybe. But the 7th one is a basic one. Daily. You need to do 90 to 120 minutes of uninterrupted concentration. Spend this time on your most important task. The one that will produce the biggest victory. The one that, once completed, will leave you feeling like you won your day. That's what you need to do every single day, 90 to 120 minutes. Now, before he tells you this list, he tells you that you need to not be overwhelmed by all these habits. Implement them one by one, small bit by bit. If you can't do 90 to 120 minutes, do 20 at the beginning, right? Do 20 minutes a day. Then next week you increase it a little bit. Then because you've been implementing those habits, you're going to gain some time. And with this surplus of time, you're going to be able to do more of that, right? Do more of those habits. So, take it like slowly. The important thing is that you actually get to doing all of them, because it will help you increase so much the amount of time that you get into flow that your life will just get so much better. The second one, 5 minutes of distraction management. Place these minutes at the end of your workday to prepare for the next day's uninterrupted concentration period. Turn off everything that regularly breaks your focus: messages, alerts, email, social media, cell phone ringers, the work, everything. You just turn off everything for those 90 minutes, fully focused, right? Personally, I am able right now to do more than that, and so I do more, and it is useful. It's deep work, right? I do more, and it's very useful. 5 minutes for making a clear goals list. Also usually at the end of the work to prepare for the next day's uninterrupted concentration period. And it is clear goals, right? Write down everything that you want to do in the day. Everything. And what I do is I basically write down all the hours of the day from 6 to 9 and from 5 p.m. from 5 a.m. Hopefully I wake up at 5 a.m. if not at 6. 5 to 9, I write down every single hour what I'm going to do. And I just go, scroll on my note app, and I just follow the plan. And it goes very smoothly like this. And you're way less probable to be distracted when you're doing this, because you've planned your day. You know exactly what you're going to do. 5 minutes for daily gratitude practice. What I do is I pray. I'm Christian. I pray. I thank God. And this is what I do. You can just be grateful. Oh, I'm grateful I live in this house. I'm grateful I live in a country that is able to have I'm grateful to have the ability to listen to this podcast, right? I'm grateful I've subscribed on this podcast because Ivaldi has given me a lot of value, right? 20 minutes for release, or 20 minutes of mindfulness. Meditation. This is what I do. I just focus on my breath. For 10 minutes in the morning, I focus on my breath. For 10 minutes in the evening, I do a reducing anxiety technique from Andrew Huberman. Pretty useful. Relaxes you and reduces anxiety. Then 25 minutes to load the pattern recognition system. So it tells you to remember the ROI on reading. Reading books is one of the best things that you could do for your brain. Just like the activity of reading, and actually having the information of an author that spent 15 years to some 5 to 10 hours of reading. This is very useful. And so read those 20 to 25 minutes of things outside your specialty. So things that are not your specialty, because you're going to be able to, load up the pattern recognition system. This is the goal. And the last one, which is something that's pretty useful, but I hope so. I hope it is very obvious for you. 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night. A good night of sleep. This is very useful as well. Weekly. Those are the things that you need to do weekly. So 2 to 6 hours, 1 or 2 times a week. So from 2 to 6 hours, 1 or 2 times a week of highest flow activity. So those are things like skiing, dancing, singing, whatever it is. Things that usually gets out of your schedule. Well, get them back in, because those get you into flow. And the more flow you get into it, the more flow you get into, the easier it is for you to get into flow. It's a positive feedback loop. So you want to get in flow as much as possible, because you're going to be able to get into flow much easier, much more easily in other activities as well. After that, there's 60 minutes 3 times a week of regular exercise. Be sure to push yourself during these sessions. The same challenge, skills, balance rule apply. If you're outside your comfort zone, then exercise is a great way to cross-train grit while resting the nervous system. Also, for reasons that have to do with how exercise impacts the brain function, aim for exercises that are cognitively challenging. So just going in a gym won't do it. Unfortunately for me, it won't do it. You need to go outside and run outside, not run in the gym on the treadmill, because this is not cognitively like loading the brain. You need to be outside, go in forest. I need to know exactly where I'm going, right? Not use a GPS for once, right? 30 to 60 minutes, 1 time a week, train a weakness and train being your best at being your worst. I've talked about this in one of the last episodes. I suggest you really go listen to it because it's very useful. 120 minutes a week of social support. Talking to people, having feedback from someone else, tell you how you're doing based on your goals, right? Having the support is very useful. Then you can, and those are the ones. Having loving, supportive people in our lives and being a loving, supportive person ourselves helps us keep us calm and happy. But it also helps us be psychologically prepared to attack the challenge skill sweet spot. Plus, it gives us a place to practice our emotional intelligence skills. And you can stack the practices. So this is a bonus for you. You can stack those practices so that you don't waste time, basically. So you just compact everything as much as possible so that you just can do multiple things at once. Almost. It's not really multitasking, but it's, very productive things that you can do. Use your 3 times a week exercise sessions as a place to train grit. This is a great place to work on perseverance, but you can also always triple stack and use this session to train up a weakness. And if you exhaust yourself during the workout and still want to give a little extra, you can also train the grit to be your best when you're at your worst. So you can use the exercise that you're doing to put yourself at your worst and exercise being your best when you are at your worst. Sorry, I need to drink a little bit of water right now. The second thing that you can stack, use a few of your active recovery periods, aka the sauna, the bath, to also practice mindfulness and or to load the pattern recognition system. So you can read, for example, when you're in the sauna, right? I don't do this, but you could. When loading the pattern recognition system, try to make books your primary information source, as you can't match their data density with any other material, especially not when you're watching videos. When you're watching videos on YouTube, it's not the same thing when you're reading the books. So yes, it gives you awareness, but the brain doesn't work as much. So it's very great when you want to discover new information, when you're watching YouTube videos, but reading is a way higher activity because you're actively doing something. Use the MacGyver method before you enter your release practice. That way, the practice does double duty, right? I've talked about this in the last episode. MacGyver method, very useful. Then, while you're still working your way through the passion recipe, because if you haven't watched the first episode on this, you need to develop your passion with curiosity, interest that you have. So while you're working on, discovering what are your passions, you can load up the pattern recognition system, right? Give yourself new ideas from different fields. And then you can always layer flow triggers into every activity. Make novelty, complexity, and unpredictability your good friends. Make sure the items on your clear goals list sit in that challenge skill sweet spot. Find a feedback buddy. Practice taking safe risks. Repeat. Then another thing is when you're devoting 120 minutes a week to social support, use this period to train up EQ, emotional intelligence, and to practice with group flows triggers, right? We talked about social triggers of group flow. Use this at the same time. Why not? Creativity and the pursuit of mastery should be built into everything you do. So try to be creative in everything you do. Try to find new solutions, original ones, right? And to do this, you need to be in this state, be in a good mood, as we talked about in one of the last podcasts, one of the last episodes. And so the last thing that he tells you, by the way, if you got some value out of this, it's not done, but like if you got some value out of this show, I think you should share it. Come on, right? And this is what he tells you at the end of the book. So if you don't want to be spoiled of the book, don't listen to this. Subscribe and I'll see you around, I guess. But this is like something that's very motivating to me. So I'm going to read it to you. And now that you know the secret, pretty underwhelming, right? And that's the real rub. None of these interventions are particularly sexy. There is no nifty piece of technology to play around with or unusual substance to ingest. They're just items on a checklist. Worse, progress is often invisible. Peak performance works like compound interest. A little bit today, a little bit tomorrow. Do this for weeks and months and years, and the results won't be just a life that exceeds your expectations, it will be one that exceeds your imagination. Most important, I think that all of the information contained in this primer puts a great yet terrible burden on each of us. Think about it this way. What impossible challenges would you tackle if you knew you could be 500% more productive? If you could be 600% more creative? If you could cut learning times in half? That's exactly what the tools and the techniques in this book can provide, which means that's exactly what's available to each and every one of us. What you choose to do with that information, well, that's entirely up to you. So go get him, Tiger. That's what he tells you. I love the book. If you like this podcast and this series, I hope you subscribe. I hope you tell someone else about it because I think it will help them as well and they will thank you for it. If you like the podcast, again, subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe, like. Tell me what you thought about this series, about this episode, and I'll see you around. Bye.